The sleek obsidian ships of the Varkon Hegemony sliced through the void, their prows cutting paths of blue-white light against the velvet blackness. 1,000 vessels, each a spear point of advanced might, aimed for the small, unremarkable planetoid known as Asteria. Commander Xy'lar, his multiple eyes fixed on the main viewscreen, felt a familiar surge of superiority. This was merely a system survey, a formality. The data streams marked Asteria as a Class 4 anomaly, occupied by a single, isolationist human colony. Their technology readings were laughably low, barely past sublight travel, no orbital defenses, nothing of concern. A quick demand for surrender, a show of force, and this insignificant speck would be absorbed into the glorious hegemony. He watched as the planetoid slowly resolved from a distant starpoint into a rough, pockmarked sphere, its surface a dull gray-brown, speckled with faint, irregular light patterns. It looked like a discarded rock. Far below, on Asteria's surface, in the labyrinthine depths of Habitat Module 7, Kael ran a calloused thumb over a series of ancient, intricate symbols etched into a tarnished brass plate. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light filtering through a crack in the ceiling above his cluttered workbench. The air hung thick with the scent of ozone, burnt plastic, and the earthy aroma of fungi from the nearby hydroponics lab. A low, rhythmic hum vibrated through the floor plates beneath his worn boots, the failing sound of the habitat's central power conduit. He knew that hum. It was tired, much like everything else on Asteria. He sighed, adjusting the cracked lenses of his goggles. The Colony Council, particularly the ever-practical Commander Lena, saw his workshop as a glorified junk pile. They called his obsession with pre-collapse engineering principles a waste of precious resources. They preferred new, cheap, easy fixes. But Kael believed in the old ways, the robust, over-engineered designs that had somehow survived the centuries. He believed they held answers, not just for a failing power conduit, but for so much more. A distant, low thrum vibrated through the habitat's hull, a sound Kael recognized but had never heard so intensely. It was too deep for the local shuttles, too sustained for a meteor shower. He felt it in his bones, a low, unsettling growl that spoke of power and mass far beyond anything Asteria possessed. Kael pushed the brass plate aside, the ancient symbols gleaming dully under his work light. He quickly crossed the workshop, his gaze drawn to a small, flickering monitor on a rickety stand. The display, cobbled together from scavenged parts, showed a crude, pixelated representation of Asteria's orbital space. Several bright, angular forms, far too large to be asteroids, were resolving on the screen. Their vectors were clear, they were decelerating, they were coming for Asteria. Kael's heart hammered against his ribs. This was not a routine survey, this was something else entirely. The familiar scent of old lubricants and metallic dust in the workshop suddenly felt sharper, colder. Commander Lena stood on the central observation deck of Command Spire 1, her face grim as she watched the display of the approaching vessels. The bridge was a buzz of nervous energy. Sub-Commander Jarrus, a burly man with perpetually worried eyes, paced beside her. "Commander," Jarrus's voice was a low rumble, "their energy signatures are off the charts. We've never seen anything like this. Even the scout probes from the Outer Reaches expeditions were less overwhelming." Lena nodded, her gaze fixed on the lead Varkon vessel. It was an arrowhead, impossibly sleek, with no visible weapon emplacements, yet radiating immense power. "They're not here to trade, Jarrus," she said, her voice calm despite the tremor in her hands. "Prepare the message array, standard contact protocols, and alert all habitat sectors. Full defensive posture." The Varkon ships continued their slow, deliberate approach, their sheer presence a tangible weight pressing down on the small colony. Lena could practically feel the cold, dismissive gaze of whatever being commanded them. A cold, synthetic voice echoed through Command Spire 1. "Incoming transmission, unencrypted, audio only." Lena nodded. "Put it through." A guttural, clicking language filled the bridge, then a synthesized translation began. "Greetings, primitives of Asteria. We are the Varkon Hegemony. Your meager existence poses no threat, but your continued presence in this sector is unsanctioned. You have 60 cycles to surrender all assets, all technology, and yourselves. Failure to comply will result in complete orbital bombardment. Resistance is futile. The voice ended with a final, condescending click. Jarrus slammed a fist onto a console. 60 cycles. They think we're going to just roll over? Lena's jaw tightened. They think we have no choice. Her gaze drifted to the secondary tactical display, showing the Varkon fleet in perfect formation, a silent, unmoving threat. She thought of the limited energy reserves, the barely functional defensive drones, the community's dependence on the failing main power conduit. Asteria was a world of engineers and tinkerers, not soldiers. They built to survive, not to fight. Kael arrived at Command Spire 1 minute later, his face smudged with grease, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and a strange, almost manic excitement. He pushed past the nervous technicians. "Commander Lena," he called out, his voice hoarse. Lena turned, her expression unreadable. "Kael, what is it?" She knew he had an uncanny knack for knowing things before they were officially reported. "They're Varkon, aren't they?" he said, not waiting for confirmation. "I saw the schematics in the old archives. They're conquerors. They value brute force and overwhelming numbers. But they have a blind spot." Lena raised an eyebrow, a hint of skepticism in her eyes. "A blind spot? Kael, they have 1,000 capital ships. We have 5 barely space-worthy transports and some repurposed mining drones." Kael ignored her. "Commander, the Project Chimera drives. The resonance pulse generators, my grandfather's notes. They speak of a frequency, a counter-oscillation that can disrupt." Lena held up a hand. "Kael, we've been over this. Your Chimera designs are experimental. They're untested. They require resources we don't have. We have bigger problems right now, like how to buy ourselves more than 60 cycles." The metallic tang of fear was palpable in the air. Kael's shoulders slumped. He knew this argument. He heard it every cycle. "But Commander, the power conduit, it's failing. My retrofitted resonator could stabilize it, give us more power for our shields, even for—" Lena shook her head slowly. "We need immediate solutions, Kael. Not another one of your grand projects that takes weeks to prototype. We're on a clock." She turned back to the main view screen. The Varkon fleet remained motionless, a dark, silent judgment. The air on the bridge hummed with unspoken dread. The colony's limited resources were always a battle. Every spare component, every watt of energy was carefully rationed. Kael's pursuit of forgotten, complex technologies was seen as a luxury Asteria could not afford. The hydroponics sector, a vital food source, had just reported a significant energy drain, impacting crop growth. This constant struggle for survival meant little room for ambitious, risky projects, even if Kael swore they could unlock hidden potential. The 60 cycles passed quickly, filled with frantic, fruitless attempts to negotiate. The Varkons remained silent, their presence a suffocating blanket over Asteria. On the 61st cycle, a single Varkon scout vessel detached from the main fleet. It was small, no more than 20 meters long, but its energy readings were immense. It approached Asteria's upper atmosphere, a test, a probe. "Commander, it's launching something?" a technician cried out. A shimmering energy projectile shot from the scout, arcing towards Asteria's most populated habitat sector. Lena reacted instantly. "Target all available drones. Deploy energy net." The colony's few repurposed mining drones, armed with repurposed plasma cutters, moved sluggishly into position. Their energy net, designed to catch orbital debris, glowed faintly. The Varkon projectile hit the net, and for a terrifying moment it held. Then, with a deafening crackle, the net flickered and dissolved. The projectile slammed into the outermost layer of Habitat Sector 3. A wave of heat even through the habitat's shielding washed over Command Spire 1. Alarms blared. "Damage report. Sector 3 outer hull breach. Minor casualties reported." Lena clenched her fists. "They just wanted to see if we'd even twitch," she murmured, her voice tight. "They weren't trying to destroy us, not yet." She turned to Kael, who stood quietly, his eyes fixed on the display. "All right, Kael. Tell me about this Project Chimera again. Your resonance pulse generators. How fast can you get anything working?" Kael's eyes lit up. He saw a flicker of hope, a desperate willingness to try something new, something his asterisk. "Commander, with enough raw power and the right frequency, these generators can create a localized temporal field. Not time travel, no, but a bubble where external energy loses coherence. It's an old concept, theorized before the collapse. My grandfather found a way to manifest it, a small-scale proof of concept. If we could get one working, even a miniature one, we could distort their energy weapons. Lena's face was skeptical, but she was listening. Distort, not block, not destroy? Kael shook his head. It's like trying to hit a target with a slingshot in a pool of molasses. Their energy spreads out, diffuses, becomes harmless. It won't destroy their ships, but it could make their weapons useless. Lena looked from the damaged habitat sector to Kael's hopeful, eager face. "What do you need?" she asked, her voice low. Kael's gaze darted around the bridge, then settled on the main power conduit status display. It was still critical. "First, Commander, we need to stabilize the main power conduit. My resonator could do it. It taps into the residual energy of the habitat's core. We'd get a temporary boost, enough to power a Chimera prototype." Lena hesitated. Diverting resources to Kael's unproven theories felt like a huge gamble. But they were losing anyway. "All right, Kael," Jarrus assigned Kael a full team of engineers. Priority 1, stabilize the power conduit. Then whatever he needs for this. "Project Chimera." Jarrus looked like he wanted to argue, but the sound of distant alarms and the low, terrified murmurs from the colony broadcast overridden his doubt. "Yes, Commander." For the next 10 cycles, Kael's workshop, once dismissed as a personal junkyard, became the frantic heart of Asteria's desperate defense. Engineers, initially skeptical, soon found themselves drawn into Kael's infectious enthusiasm. They worked around the clock, fueled by recycled nutrient paste and grim determination. The air in the workshop now carried the metallic tang of newly cut wires and the sharp scent of ozone from power couplings pushed to their limits. Kael directed them, his voice hoarse, his hands flying over schematics and components. He didn't just tell them what to do. He explained the why, drawing on his grandfather's meticulously preserved journals, describing the elegance of forgotten principles, the beauty of circuits designed to adapt, to survive. He taught them how to repurpose damaged parts, how to coax power from dying systems. The resource shortage, which had seemed like a crippling limitation, now became a perverse kind of inspiration. They had asterisk to invent, had asterisk to adapt, because there was no alternative. The central power conduit, a behemoth of corroded conduits and sputtering relays, was a beast Kael knew intimately. It was the lifeblood of Asteria, but it was dying. He envisioned his resonator not as a patch, but as a pacemaker, coaxing new life from old parts. The real challenge lay in the temporal field generators. His grandfather's notes were cryptic, full of abstract equations and faded diagrams. They spoke of phase-shifting harmonic resonance and quantum entanglement fields. Kael understood that the key was not brute force, but precision. It was about creating a specific vibration, a frequency that would cause other energies to stumble and dissipate. He built the prototype out of scavenged power cells, a modified comms array, and a dozen salvaged optical relays. It was ugly, a mess of wires and exposed circuits, but Kael believed in its heart. His hands, usually steady, trembled slightly as he connected the final wire. The air crackled with anticipation. The resonant thrum of the power conduit, once a sick, dying groan, now pulsed with a stronger, more regular beat. Kael's resonator had worked. The habitat's power levels, once dangerously low, had climbed by a crucial 8%. It wasn't much, but it was enough to power Kael's Chimera prototype. Word spread through the colony. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Commander Lena arrived at the workshop, her expression less skeptical, more curious. "It's a miracle, Kael. The hydroponics sector just reported stable energy flow. We might actually get a full harvest cycle now." Kael simply nodded, his eyes on his ugly prototype. "It's not a miracle, Commander, it's forgotten engineering." He motioned to the Chimera device. "This is next. We need to field test it, against something real." The Varkon Hegemony, arrogant in their overwhelming power, had given Asteria a reprieve, a chance to consider their options. Commander Xy'lar, from the bridge of his flagship, the Oblivion Prime Asterisk, watched the human colony with a growing sense of irritation. Their previous probe had yielded no tactical data, just a fleeting energy net that had quickly dissipated. Primitive and ineffective. He assumed the humans were now cowering, preparing for their inevitable surrender. His second-in-command, a rigid tactician named Vrel, clicked his mandibles together, a sign of agitation. "Commander, the extended delay is unusual. Their response was minimal. Should we not proceed with the standard orbital sweep?" Xy'lar extended a clawed digit, pointing at Asteria on the main view screen. "No, Vrel. There is a peculiar energy signature emanating from their primary habitat. It is faint, inconsistent, but it was not present before. I want to understand what it is. Launch a probe, a full spectral analysis. We will unravel their secrets before we crush them." He wanted to demonstrate the hegemony's intellectual superiority as well as its martial might. Kael's team, with Lena's approval, repurposed one of Asteria's small, civilian cargo shuttles. They stripped out the cargo bays, installing the ungainly Chimera prototype in its place. The shuttle, named the Hope's Whisper Asterisk, looked like a patched-up relic, its hull scarred from years of asteroid dodging. Kael, accompanied by Lena and a small crew of engineers, boarded the shuttle. The interior was cramped, smelling of recycled air and nervous sweat. Lena sat in the co-pilot's seat, her hand resting on a console, her eyes fixed on Kael. "Kael," she said, her voice quiet, "are you certain about this? If this fails, we lose our most valuable shuttle and potentially our best engineers." Kael met her gaze. "Commander, if we don't try, we lose everything anyway. This is our only chance to show them we're not just primitives." He turned to the pilot, a stoic woman named Captain Eva. "Eva, take us to the upper atmosphere. Keep us clear of their main fleet, but close enough to encounter any probes they might send." Eva nodded, her face grim. The Hope's Whisper shuddered, its engines coughing to life with a familiar, strained whine. The Hope's Whisper ascended slowly, like an old, weary bird. The planet's blue-green horizon curved away below them, revealing the vast, silent expanse of space. Kael watched the sensor display, his heart pounding. Then a blip appeared, small, fast, unmistakably Varkon. "It's coming," he whispered. "Right on schedule." The Varkon probe was a blur of light, approaching them at incredible speed. It was not a weapon, but a highly advanced scanning array. Kael knew it would pick apart the Hope's Whisper in seconds, analyzing every circuit, every system, every scrap of technology. He needed to activate the Chimera drive before it could complete its scan. "Eva, hold steady," Kael yelled, leaning over the Chimera console. He pressed a sequence of buttons, his fingers dancing over the worn controls. A low hum filled the shuttle, vibrating through the deck plates. The air around the Chimera device began to shimmer, a faint, almost invisible distortion. On the bridge of the Oblivion Prime Asterisk, Commander R watched the probe's data feed. "Excellent, their primitive vessel is fully within range. Commence deep scan." But then, the data feed flickered. The clear, crisp images of the Hope's Whisper became distorted, warped, as if viewed through rippling water. The energy signatures scattered, becoming unreadable noise. "What is this?" Xy'lar demanded, his eyes narrowing. "The probe's sensors are malfunctioning." Vrel, leaning over a console, tapped at a display. "Commander, it's not a malfunction. The human vessel is emitting some kind of localized interference field. Our sensors cannot penetrate it." On the screen, the Hope's Whisper became a shimmering, indistinct blob of light. The probe, unable to gather useful data, broke off its approach, returning to the Oblivion Prime Asterisk. Xy'lar slammed a claw on his console. "Impossible. A primitive species creating a field that our deep-scan probes cannot decipher. What trickery is this?" He felt a cold flicker of unease. This was not what the data streams had predicted. This was not normal. Back on the Hope's Whisper Asterisk, the hum of the Chimera device subsided. Kael, wiping sweat from his brow, exhaled slowly. "It worked," he breathed, a wide grin spreading across his face. "It didn't destroy anything, but it made their probe blind. They won't know what they saw." Lena stared at the console, then at Kael. I don't believe it. You made their advanced probe useless with that contraption." She gestured at the exposed wires and salvaged parts of the Chimera. Kael chuckled, a rare sound. "It's not about how it looks, Commander. It's about how it works. It's about finding the cracks in their understanding. The old engineers knew that. They weren't limited by what was possible in their time. They dreamed of what was imaginable." Eva, the pilot, slowly turned in her seat, a faint smile on her lips. "I think we just bought ourselves some more time, Commander." The mood in the shuttle, once heavy with dread, was now charged with a fragile but potent hope. They had shown the Varkons a glimpse of something they couldn't comprehend. That Kael knew was a far more powerful weapon than any laser. News of the blinded probe spread through Asteria like wildfire. The colony, previously despondent, now buzzed with renewed energy. Kael, once the eccentric tinkerer, was now a quiet hero. Children looked at him with wide, admiring eyes, but his success also brought new pressures. The Council, emboldened, now demanded more. "Kael, can you scale it up? Can you put it on our transports? Can it block their weapons entirely?" Kael knew the truth. Scaling it up required far more power and, more importantly, more specific rare components. The success against the probe was a trick, a clever use of unknown physics against unsuspecting sensors. It wasn't a shield against 1,000 warships. He felt the weight of expectation. His hands, usually so confident with tools, now felt heavy. He spent the next few cycles holed up in his workshop, the scent of ozone and burning circuitry a constant companion. The original Chimera prototype pulsed dimly on his bench. The challenge wasn't just power. It was the core component, the harmonic resonator matrix. His grandfather's notes mentioned it only briefly, hinting at crystalline structures found only in deep space anomalies or highly refined subatomic alloys. Asteria had neither. He needed a substitute, a workaround. He ran simulations, burning through precious processing power, trying to calculate a way to approximate the effects using more common, if less efficient, materials. The resource scarcity, once his muse, now felt like an insurmountable wall. He barely ate, his sleep punctuated by vivid dreams of Varkon ships burning through the atmosphere, Asteria crumbling under their assault. Lena often visited his workshop not to demand but to observe. She saw the lines of fatigue etched around his eyes, the subtle tremor in his hands. "Kael," she said one evening, finding him staring blankly at a complex schematic, "you're pushing yourself too hard. We can't win this alone, even with your inventions." Kael didn't look up. "It's not about winning, Commander, it's about surviving, and I think I found a way to make them regret attacking us." He tapped a section of the schematic. "My grandfather's final notes spoke of a repurposed temporal distortion field that could be inverted. Not to make something invisible, but to make it very, very visible. Visible in a way that would scramble their targeting systems, make their precision weapons useless." He hesitated. "But it would require a massive power surge, something Asteria simply doesn't have. Not a sustained one anyway." Lena looked at the schematic. "A massive power surge. What kind of surge?" Kael finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot but gleaming with an idea. "Enough to power a small habitat module for a full cycle. All at once? It would drain our reserves, possibly damage the main conduit beyond repair, but it would create a temporary bubble of pure chaos around a targeted ship. Their sensors would see 1,000,000 ghosts. Their weapons would fire at nothing." Lena considered this. The gamble was immense. Draining their power reserves could cripple Asteria, leaving them vulnerable to the next attack. But the resource shortage was worsening. The hydroponics sector was barely keeping up with demand, despite Kael's conduit fix. The community's energy budget was already strained. Children were going to sleep hungry. Desperation was setting in. Meanwhile, Commander Xy'lar was growing increasingly agitated. The asterisk hopes whisper asterisk incident, followed by the complete radio silence from Asteria, deeply unsettled him. His tactical readouts showed a stable, though primitive, colony. Yet they had demonstrated an unknown technology. He had ordered immediate orbital bombardments, but the Hegemony High Command had intervened. "Cease fire, Commander Xy'lar. We require the complete understanding of this temporal anomaly. Capture a specimen, a vessel, a human, bring them for study." Xy'lar chafed at the order. He was a conqueror, not a scientist. But he followed orders. He devised a new plan, a direct assault but with a capture objective. A few smaller ships, heavily shielded, would penetrate the atmosphere and secure a sample. He would personally lead the ground assault team, ensuring success and making up for the previous embarrassments. The Varkon assault began 3 cycles later, not with a massive bombardment, but with a targeted strike. 3 Varkon corvettes, smaller and more agile than the capital's ships, detached from the fleet and plunged into Asteria's atmosphere. Their energy shields shimmered, deflecting the repurposed mining lasers Asteria managed to fire. Lena, on the bridge, watched the tactical display in horror. "They're aiming for Sector 7. Kael's habitat?" Kael, standing beside her, felt a cold dread. Sector 7 was the oldest, most vulnerable part of the colony. It was where his workshop was, where his grandfather's legacy lay. "Commander, the Project Chimera inverted field. I can mount the prototype on one of the mining drones. It's crude, but it might work." Lena looked at him, her face grim. "The power surge, Kael, it's all or nothing." She looked at Jarrus. "Prepare the colony for immediate power down. Redirect all energy to Kael's drone, all of it. Life support will be minimal. Hydroponics will be offline. This is our one shot." Jarrus swallowed hard. "Understood, Commander." The decision was made. The colony would go dark, risking everything on Kael's untested device. The scent of ozone from the overworked consoles intensified. Kael worked with frantic speed, his hands a blur. The mining drone, usually a slow, lumbering beast, was being stripped down, refitted with the Chimera prototype. Other engineers, their faces pale but determined, helped him. The drone's core reactor was being pushed far beyond its safe limits. He could smell the ozone burning, the metallic tang of strained circuitry. He heard the distant thrum of the Varkon corvettes, growing closer, louder. The comms crackled with frantic reports of hull breaches, of laser fire impacting Asteria's outer layers. He knew Lena was buying him time. He knew what she was risking. The very air in the workshop was charged with desperation and the metallic tang of fear. The internal lights of the habitat began to flicker, then dimmed. Then one by one they died. Emergency lighting, a dull red glow, took over. Asteria was going dark. The Varkon corvettes, their shields easily shrugging off the sputtering defenses, were nearly at the surface. Commander Xy'lar, watching from the bridge of the Oblivion Prime, clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "Their defenses are failing, they are collapsing, prepare for extraction." He felt a smug satisfaction. This primitive species was breaking. He enjoyed the power they wielded, the crushing weight of their technological superiority. The lights of Asteria were winking out, one by one, a visual representation of their surrender. On Asteria, in the pitch blackness of the workshop, Kael made the final connection. A faint blue spark jumped between two conduits. The Chimera prototype pulsed with a deep, hungry hum. "It's ready," he gasped, wiping sweat from his brow. Lena's voice, strained but clear, came over his comm. "Kael, they're breaching Sector 7. You have 1 minute." Kael nodded, though she couldn't see him. He looked at the mining drone, now a silhouette in the dim emergency lights. It was their last hope. He turned to the drone's pilot, a young woman named Xy'lar, barely out of training, her face pale but resolute. "Xy'lar, launch trajectory is set. Once you're clear, activate the inverted field. Aim for their lead vessel. Don't worry about evasion, just get it to them." Xy'lar nodded, her jaw set. She climbed into the drone's cramped cockpit. The hatch hissed shut. The mining drone, an ungainly, heavy machine, lumbered out of the underground hangar. It shot upwards, surprisingly fast, propelled by the raw, unfettered power now being funneled into its engines. The Varkon corvettes had just begun their descent into Sector 7's atmosphere, their weapons illuminating the night sky with blinding lances of energy. The lead Varkon corvette, the harbinger of doom Asterisk, was moments from deploying its ground troops. Commander R watched its descent with anticipation. He was eager to step onto Asterian soil to personally supervise the acquisition of this anomaly. Suddenly, the harbinger of doom was engulfed in a blinding flash of light, not from an explosion, but from within. It was as if the ship itself had become a star, flickering and distorting in 1,000 impossible colors. On the Asterisk Oblivion Prime Asterisk S bridge, the Varkon tactical displays screamed. "Target integrity compromised. Gravimetric distortions. Phantom readings across all frequencies. We have 1,000,000 false positives." Commander Xy'lar recoiled, his multifaceted eyes straining against the dazzling light emanating from his lead corvette. It wasn't just light, it was chaos. His sensors were showing multiple vessels, all superimposed on top of each other, constantly shifting, appearing and disappearing. His precision targeting arrays, designed to lock onto a single energy signature, were overwhelmed. The Varkon corvettes, attempting to fire on the phantom targets, wasted their energy in a chaotic, desperate display of firepower. Lasers lanced out in random directions, missing the real mining drone, missing Asteria, hitting nothing but empty space. The harbinger of doom Asterisk, its internal systems designed for pinpoint accuracy, was in a meltdown of targeting information. Its own weapons fired wildly, some impacting its sister corvettes, causing minor but unexpected damage. The field was not destructive, but it was profoundly disorienting. It made the Varkon's superior technology a liability, a complex machine overwhelmed by a simple, elegant trick. Kael watched from Command Spire 1, which was now running on minimal emergency power. The large screen, previously dark, now flickered, showing the chaos around the Varkon corvettes. The single mining drone, a tiny speck, glowed faintly in the center of the brilliant, disorienting field it was creating. "It's working," he whispered, a triumphant note in his voice. "Their systems can't handle the noise. It's too much data, too many conflicting readings. They're trying to process a reality that doesn't make sense to them." Lena stood beside him, her face illuminated by the flickering screen. A faint smile touched her lips. "So this is the chaos bubble," she murmured. "Beautiful." Commander R stared at the screen, his mandibles clicking furiously. "What is this?" he roared. "Our ships are firing on each other. Our targeting arrays are useless. Retreat." "Retreat immediately?" He could not comprehend it. There was no weapon being fired, no discernible energy signature that could cause this. It was simply confusion. Their advanced, precise systems, designed to operate in a perfectly ordered reality, were being broken by a deliberately induced cascade of false information. It was like a perfectly tuned instrument, suddenly being hit by random noise on every frequency at once. The Varkon corvettes, bewildered and unable to engage, broke formation, and ascended rapidly, their shields flickering as they tried to escape the impossible reality Kael had created. The mining drone, having completed its mission, slowly descended back to Asteria, its work done. Xy'lar, the pilot, emerged from the cockpit, her eyes wide, her face streaked with tears of relief. Kael embraced her. On the Asterisk Oblivion Prime Asterisk, Commander R watched the retreating corvettes, then turned his gaze to Asteria. The planet was dark, a silent challenge. He felt a cold rage mixed with something akin to fear. This was not a primitive species. This was something new, something that defied their understanding of combat. "High Command, prepare full report," he barked. "The humans of Asteria are not a Class 4 anomaly. They are a threat. They fight with unseen weapons. They make reality a weapon. Their technology is an enigma." He ordered the Varkon fleet to retreat, not in defeat, but in tactical disengagement. They needed to study. They needed to understand. The hegemony had never encountered an enemy that fought by confusing the very fabric of space-time. The Varkon fleet, 1,000 strong, turned and began its slow, deliberate retreat from Asteria. The immense pressure that had weighed on the colony for cycles finally lifted. On Asteria, the lights slowly flickered back on as the power reserves, though severely depleted, were rerouted. Kael's inverted field had not destroyed a single Varkon ship, but it had achieved something far more profound. It had made the Varkon's Asterisk afraid of what they didn't understand, afraid of the impossible. In the aftermath, the celebration on Asteria was subdued, yet deeply felt. The threat was gone for now, but the cost was immense. The main power conduit was damaged, running at 20% efficiency. The hydroponics sector was severely impacted, crops wilting from lack of consistent power. Food rationing became stricter. The resource shortage, a silent subplot throughout the conflict, now became the colony's primary focus. Kael, hailed as a savior, felt the weight of it. His inventions had saved them, but they had also pushed Asteria to the brink. He saw the weary faces, the hungry eyes. He had to do more. He had to find a way to not just survive, but to thrive. Commander Lena, overseeing the damage assessment, found Kael in his workshop, surrounded by his tools, not celebrating but poring over old schematics. The air was thick with the scent of dust and burning circuitry, a familiar aroma of his genius. "Kael," she said softly, "we are safe, for now. You did it." Kael looked up, his eyes tired. "But at what cost, Commander? We barely have enough power to sustain ourselves. The Varkons will return, and next time they will not be confused. They will come prepared." Lena sat on a crate beside him. Then we adapt again, just like you taught us. She picked up one of his grandfather's journals, its pages brittle and yellowed. These lost principles of yours, are there more of them? Ones that can help us rebuild, not just fight? Kael nodded, a spark returning to his eyes. My grandfather believed that true engineering wasn't just about building. It was about understanding the fundamental forces of the universe. He spoke of harmonic energy tapping, of drawing power from the residual quantum fluctuations in deep space. It was theoretical, a dream, but he left a path, a series of coordinates, a deep space anomaly he called the wellspring. Lena looked at him, intrigued. A wellspring of what? Kael shrugged. He never said. Only that it might hold the key to limitless energy, or a component that could make the harmonic resonator matrix truly work. If we could get there, if it's even real. The resource shortage now took on a new dimension. Perhaps the solution was not to hoard what they had, but to find a way to create more. The next few cycles were dedicated to preparation. The remaining Asterian transport, the Stargazer Asterisk, was stripped bare, refitted with minimal life support and Kael's more efficient, but still fragile power conduit stabilizer. They had to be quick. The Varkons would not wait long. Kael meticulously studied his grandfather's faded star charts, cross-referencing them with Asteria's limited astronomical data. The coordinates led to a region of space known for its unpredictable stellar phenomena, far beyond the hegemony's usual patrol routes. It was a dangerous journey, a gamble on a ghost story. Lena, despite her pragmatism, saw the logic. They had nothing left to lose. She volunteered to pilot the Stargazer, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This was not about fighting, but about finding a new way forward. Kael and Lena, along with a small team of engineers and navigators, boarded the Asterisk Stargazer. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. The scent of recycled air and old metal filled the small craft. As they departed Asteria's orbit, the planet looked small and fragile, a beacon of defiant ingenuity against the vastness of space. The journey was long and perilous. They rationed water and nutrient paste. The Stargazer Asterisk's old systems constantly needed Kael's delicate adjustments, his touch coaxing life from failing circuits. He described the engineering challenges to Lena, explaining the complex interplay of forces. She listened, absorbing, understanding that true strength wasn't just in military might, but in the ability to solve problems, to adapt, to understand. Days blurred into weeks. The Stargazer limped through nebulae and asteroid fields, dodging gravitational anomalies and bursts of cosmic radiation. The resource shortage became acutely real. The power systems flickered more often. Their last emergency water purifier failed. Lena's hands trembled as she steered, her body weary, her spirit strained. Kael, observing her, saw the fear in her eyes, but also the unwavering resolve. He saw the same resilience he had poured into his machines. He realized that the human spirit was itself a form of lost engineering, able to endure and adapt even when everything seemed to fail. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Stargazer Asterisk's ancient sensors registered a peculiar anomaly. Not a star, not a nebula, but a vast, shimmering void in space, absorbing light rather than emitting it. The wellspring, Kael breathed, his voice filled with awe. Lena brought the Stargazer closer, her hands steady despite the strange readings flooding her console. The wellspring pulsed, a silent, hungry presence. As they neared, the space around them began to distort, the stars stretching and warping. Kael's grandfather's journal had warned of this. It was a gravitational anomaly, a nexus of immense, unknown forces. They had to enter. Kael explained the theory. If his grandfather was correct, the wellspring was a place where the fabric of reality was thin, where residual energies from ancient cosmic events could be tapped. He needed a specific resonance, a harmonic frequency to unlock it. He needed the harmonic resonator matrix. He had built a crude version, using repurposed components, but it was nothing compared to what his grandfather had envisioned. As they entered the wellspring, the Stargazer shuddered violently. Alarms blared. Power fluctuations ravaged the ship. Lena fought the controls, her teeth gritted. The scent of ozone and burning circuits filled the bridge. Kael raced to his makeshift lab in the back, working frantically on his prototype resonator. He needed something more, something to bridge the gap. He looked at the tarnished brass plate he had brought from his workshop, the one with the ancient symbols. It wasn't just a decoration. His grandfather had mentioned it in a footnote, a focal point for specific energetic frequencies. It was a form of conductive antenna, but based on forgotten principles. He quickly wired it into his crude resonator. As he connected the final wire, the brass plate hummed, a low, resonant thrum that filled the small lab. The power fluctuations on the stargazer suddenly stabilized, then surged. The wellspring responded. A shimmering conduit of pure, raw energy materialized before the stargazer asterisk, a river of light flowing from the heart of the anomaly. It was not destructive, but inviting. Kael felt a deep resonance within him, a primal connection to this ancient, forgotten power. He realized what the wellspring truly was, a conduit, a place where the universe's inherent energies could be accessed, not created. He saw fragments of schematics flash in his mind, not just from his grandfather, but from even older, long-lost human designs. Humanity, in its earliest days, had tapped into these forces. They had built things not through brute force, but through elegant understanding, through harmony with the universe. Suddenly, Lena's voice crackled over the intercom, filled with urgency. "Kael, Varkon contact, 2 scout vessels. They must have followed our energy signature." Kael rushed back to the bridge. Indeed, 2 Varkon scouts, smaller versions of the ones that had attacked Asteria, were approaching the wellspring. Their weapon systems powered up, their intent clear. They were not here to observe, they were here to eliminate. Kael looked at the shimmering river of energy outside the stargazer asterisk's viewports. "Lena, bring us closer to the conduit." Lena looked at him, her eyes wide. "Kael, we're not armed, we barely have power." Kael grinned, a wild, almost manic look in his eyes. "We don't need weapons, we have something better, we have understanding." As the Varkon scouts opened fire, their energy blasts impacting the stargazer asterisk's weakened shields, Kael activated his improvised harmonic resonator. The brass plate glowed. The ship's internal systems hummed with the immense, unfathomable power drawn from the wellspring. He wasn't just tapping energy. He was focusing it, shaping it. A wave of shimmering, destabilizing energy burst forth from the stargazer asterisk, not a destructive blast, but a wave of pure, overwhelming information. The Varkon scouts' internal systems screamed. Their targeting computers went haywire. Their shields flickered violently, not from damage, but from fundamental instability. The captains of the Varkon scouts looked on in horror as their sophisticated systems turned against them, overloading with phantom data, their ships vibrating uncontrollably. It was the same chaos effect as before, but amplified 1,000-fold by the wellspring's raw energy. The Varkon scouts, unable to function, unable to fire, spun out of control, their internal systems collapsing under the weight of impossible information. Their crews, trained for precision and order, were paralyzed by the sheer, unbridled chaos Kael had unleashed. They were not destroyed, but rendered utterly helpless, drifting wrecks in the void. Kael powered down the resonator, the wellspring's conduit receding slightly. The stargazer stabilized. Lena stared at the 2 drifting Varkon ships, then at Kael. Her mouth was open slightly. You didn't just blind them, you broke them. You scrambled their very understanding of reality." Kael nodded, exhaustion washing over him. "When you build everything on rigid logic and perfect data, a little chaos is all it takes to bring it crashing down." He looked at the brass plate, now cool in his hand. "This isn't just about ancient tech, Commander. It's about an ancient asterisk mindset asterisk. The old humans didn't just build machines. They understood the universe. They found the elegant solutions, the ones that didn't rely on brute force, but on harmony, on leverage. The return journey to Asteria was filled with a new kind of energy. They had not just survived. They had found a source of power that could transform their world. The knowledge from the wellspring, translated by Kael using his grandfather's notes, showed how to construct a true harmonic resonator, one that could provide limitless, clean energy for Asteria. It wasn't a sudden, magical solution. It would take time, effort, and all of Asteria's tinkering ingenuity. But now they had the blueprint, they had the core principle. Word of Asteria's victory against the Varkon scouts in the anomalous region spread like wildfire across the known galaxy. carried by the very alien species who had dismissed humanity. The Varkon Hegemony, humiliated and utterly baffled, withdrew from the sector, unsure how to classify or combat an enemy that fought with such incomprehensible methods. Other alien species, initially observing with curiosity, now watched Asteria with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Humanity, once considered a backwater species clinging to a forgotten planetoid, had revealed a hidden depth, a cunning and adaptability that defied conventional understanding. Back on Asteria, the construction of the new wellspring energy conduit began. It was a massive undertaking, requiring the entire colony's effort. Kael, no longer dismissed, worked alongside everyone, guiding, teaching, sharing the knowledge he had unlocked. Commander Lena, her skepticism replaced by profound respect, worked tirelessly beside him. She saw not just the brilliance of his inventions, but the depth of his character. He remained humble, focused on the task, more interested in the elegant solution than in personal glory. The initial success of the wellspring energy tap was modest, a flickering glow of power flowing into Asteria's grid. But it was growing, steadily increasing. The hydroponics sector bloomed with renewed vitality. Lights shone brighter. The low, dying hum of the old power conduit was replaced by the clean, quiet thrum of the new harmonic generator. The resource shortage, while still a challenge, was no longer a death sentence. Asteria was transforming, not into a military power, but into a beacon of sustainable ingenuity. Kael, standing on a newly constructed observation deck overlooking the wellspring conduit, felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The air now smelled cleaner, mixed with the faint, invigorating scent of new growth from the thriving hydroponics. He looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers. But humanity, the tinkerers of Asteria, had shown that their strength was not in overwhelming force, but in the ingenuity of their minds, the adaptability of their spirit, and their ability to unlock forgotten potential. They had looked into the past and found the future. They had been dismissed as primitive, but they had proven that cunning, resilience, and a deep understanding of the universe were the most powerful technologies of all. The universe had just begun to realize what humanity was truly capable of. And Asteria, the small, pockmarked planetoid, was just the beginning. The story of humanity's unexpected impact on the galaxy had just truly begun to unfold.